can't let a guy like him go. You know, I mean, I know it's football, and there's always some new exciting toy, new exciting kid, that has potential to go out there and be great. But this is a business of for sure it's a knowns. And Lamar Jackson is an incredible player, and I think it's in the best interest of the Ravens organization to give him a long-term contract and make him a guy.
Calais Campbell, one of the great guys of the NFL, talking about the situation between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. You can't let a guy like him go. It has been awkward. It has been delicate. It has all kind of come to a head in recent days. Peter, last week was strange. We got for the first time a sense of exasperation from within the organization, whether it's coaching staff, front office, locker room. This idea that Lamar Jackson, arguably, possibly healthy enough to play with his PCL sprain, but choosing not to. And let me just say this. I got no problem with a guy who has earned his long-term financial security, who is not 100%, taking the position, I'm not playing without my long-term financial security. The problem is he should have it already, in part because he should have been represented by someone who could explain to him the pros and cons, pluses and minuses, costs and benefits of taking and not taking the best offer the Ravens would have made. And if you don't want that offer, we need to mobilize an effort to get you to a new team. If you want DeSean Watson's deal, at some point you have to behave like DeSean Watson did, which means embracing being the bad guy and saying, I'm never playing for you again. That's the problem. He's got a lot of the blame, Peter, in my view, for not having a long-term contract because he didn't have someone who could help him get one.
There's no question about that, Mike. I think for some reason he has it in his head that having an agent is not the best thing for me. And I'm not here to advocate for an agent, any specific one, or to say anything. But logically, it's very hard for the Baltimore Ravens to say to Lamar Jackson, okay, you're not worth a guaranteed contract, 5 years, $45 million, whatever. I don't know what the numbers are, whatever they are, okay? You're not worth that. Because the Baltimore Ravens don't want to say those words to the starting quarterback of the football team. You're not worth something. They want to be able to say it to John Doe, the agent, so that John Doe can then say, hey, Lamar, here's why it's not a smart thing to ask for this. If indeed, I'm assuming he asked for it. Lamar's never admitted that. It's been this rampant speculation. So I'm assuming that it's true, but I don't know it 100% factually.
It's true.
The fact is,
Peter,
however,
the union filed.
Okay,
go ahead. The union filed a grievance over this whole issue of fully guaranteed contracts. Lamar Jackson wants a 5-year fully guaranteed contract, period. He doesn't understand how difficult it is to get it and all the dynamics involved. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yes, he clearly wants it, and that's been the reason for the impasse.
So to me, I think there are two things to say about that, as I was going to say before you logically, and you should have, interrupted me. But there's two things to say. Number one, DeSean Watson's contract is an outlier. Pure, simple outlier. No one else has gotten it. You can say, well, what about Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins is a different story. All along, he's gotten these guaranteed deals. And he stood up for it. He and his agent, Mike McCartney, stood up for it and basically said, this is what we're going to do. This is what we want, blah, blah, blah. If you want to employ us, this is what it's going to take. So teams have agreed to do that. My feeling about, getting a, quote, 5-year, $250 million guaranteed contract, if indeed those are the financial figures, my feeling is, especially now and even last year, Lamar Jackson missed the last 5 3/4 football games because he was hurt. Now, this year, he missed the last 6 3/4 football games because he was hurt. And again, I'm not faulting him for being hurt. I'm just simply stating a fact. Why would a team give a fully guaranteed contract to a player who over the last 2 football seasons has missed 34% of the time at the most important position on the field?
And your point about the Ravens not being able to say directly to Lamar Jackson, you're not worth a 5-year fully guaranteed contract, that's not even the way that they would phrase it. But even then, Lamar Jackson has shown no inclination to accept the very real differences between his situation, DeSean Watson's situation, and Kirk Cousins' situation. Because there has been a vague sense that Lamar is content to do what Kirk Cousins did. And I remember 3 games into the season when Lamar was playing really well, and people in the industry, in our industry, in the media were saying he bet on himself and won. It's like, whoa. No. The bet doesn't pay off until the end of the 2024 season.
Yes.
Under the Kirk Cousins track. You still got to get through all of 22, all of 23, all of 24, healthy and effective before you can go out and dictate terms on the open market. And Cousins was able to get a 3-year fully guaranteed deal. He's renegotiated it a couple of times since then. To get the DeSean Watson deal, you've got to say, I'm never playing for you again. Trade me. And then you have to hope that the team will trade you. And then you have to hope that multiple teams will line up and clamor to get you, and you can play them against each other, and you can, at the right time, say to one of them, sorry, we're not interested anymore. And then you have to hope that that team has already alienated its relationship with its current starting quarterback, in this case it was Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, to the point where they're desperate enough to swing back around and say, how about a 5-year fully guaranteed deal? That's how rare it is. That's how narrow that needle is that DeSean Watson's agent was able to thread. Good luck, Lamar Jackson, or any player or any human doing that your own when it's not what you do for a living. I couldn't have done it at age 25 on behalf of myself with all those complicated moving parts. That's what Lamar Jackson doesn't understand, and that's what he desperately needs someone to explain to him. And Peter, now it's getting to the point where, and here's what I think is going to happen, non-exclusive franchise tag, and he will have an invitation to go out there and try to do what he's been unable to do with the Ravens, negotiate a long-term deal with another team. And the Ravens will gladly take 2 first-round picks or maybe even work out a trade. But it goes nowhere if Lamar Jackson can't negotiate a long-term deal with another team. And he's not going to get somebody to rush to him with a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. It's just not going to work that way.
So, Mike, if you try to read the tea leaves on the future, I agree with you about the non-exclusive franchise tag. And so people understand this. What that basically means is that Lamar Jackson would be able to, and I assume he's not going to have an agent, he would be able to, I'm sure somehow, some way, he could get Joe Douglas's cell phone number, the general manager of the New York Jets, or Chris Ballard's cell phone number, the GM of the Indianapolis Colts, and say, hey, I'd like to negotiate with you if you have any interest in me. And so, I mean, that's so crazy to think about. Maybe it'll happen. I don't know. But the bottom line in this is, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he does call Joe Douglas, that the pressure from Woody Johnson on Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh to get the franchise quarterback, that Woody Johnson says, okay, we'll give you our next 2 ones. And we will sign Lamar Jackson to, let's say, an 80% guaranteed contract. And we will give him a 5-year contract that is 80% guaranteed or whatever. And Lamar Jackson takes it. So then you say, okay, well, what does that mean? What happens? Well, then the Ravens have the right, if they choose to basically say, okay, we're going to either take that or we're going to allow him to leave, and then we'll take, the draft choice compensation. I'm putting myself in the Ravens' shoes as a team that has now seen a guy who makes a living partly with his legs as well as his arm, and he's one of the best runners at quarterback in the 103-year history of the NFL. So as a guy who does that, and with the last 2 years has been hurt for a third of the year, I think the Ravens would say, We'll take it. Okay, Jets, you give us the 13th pick in this draft, and then the Ravens will take a quarterback at some point. Just think, Mike. They got their last two quarterbacks with the 18th pick in the draft, Joe Flacco, and with the 32nd pick in the draft, Lamar Jackson. I doubt they're afraid of being left with the 13th and whatever they're going to have, whatever they have, like 20th pick in the draft. I forget what they have. But I doubt they're going to be afraid and think that, oh my God, we don't want to let this guy go. Of course they don't want to let him go. But if given those choices, I have to think that the Ravens would take the draft pick or picks and just pick another quarterback.
Later today, John Harbaugh, the coach of the Ravens, and Eric DeCosta, the GM, meet with the media for their end-of-season press conference. It'll be interesting to see what messages may or may not be sent in the things they say or don't say. One last point I want to make, though, before we break. Lamar Jackson has from time to time been linked to the Dolphins. He's from Miami. There was a social media reaction by him last summer where he liked a mock-up of him in a Dolphins uniform. And the Tua situation continues to be, despite what the Dolphins publicly say, until they pick up his fifth-year option or sign him to a long-term contract, I think that they potentially are considering their options. Peter, the last point I want to make on Lamar Jackson, the 2 first-round picks as compensation. People would say, well, the Dolphins can't do anything because their first-round pick is in the custody of the league office as a punishment for tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady last year. Keep this in mind. After the 2023 draft comes and goes, the Dolphins could then sign Lamar Jackson to an offer sheet because then the 2 first-round picks would be 2024 and 2025. That could happen. And that wouldn't be great for the Ravens because they'd have to wait a full year to get the first of their 2 first-round picks and not get it this year. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.